welcome back to Gaming Urban Legends. Today we're going to be looking at a certain urban legend called Pokemon Lavender Town Syndrome. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. The Lavender Town Syndrome was a peak in suicides and illness of children between the ages of 7 and 12. Shortly after the release of Pokemon Red and Green in Japan, back in February 27th of 1996, rumors say that these suicides and illnesses only occurred after the child playing the game reached Lavender Town, whose theme music had extremely high frequencies, which studies showed that only children and young teens can hear since their ears are much more sensitive. Due to the Lavender Town theme, at least 200 children supposedly committed suicide, and many more developed illnesses and affliction. Although Lavender Town now sounds differently depending on the game, this mass hysteria was caused by the first Pokemon's game release. After the Lavender Town incident, the programmers had fixed Lavender Town's theme music to be at a lower frequency, and since children were no longer affected by it. Introduced in Pokemon Red and Green, Lavender Town is the designated graveyard for deceased Pokemon and is known for its ghost sightings. The first edition of these games were released in Japan in February 1996. By the time the games were released in the United States 2 years later, the original music for Lavender Town changed. Since the ambiance of the town was that of a graveyard, the music was relatively creepy. This small town in a Pokemon game had such a lasting impression on every gamer who stepped foot into the haunted town. The White Hand Sprite. Known in the code as whitehand.gif, this was scripted to appear as a Pokemon on the 3rd floor of the Pokemon Tower. It is divided into 4 separate animations: an introduction, the cry of a Pokemon unleashes before a battle, an idle, and 2 attacks. These attacks are unknown, as they are listed simply as Fist and Brutal. While viewing the animation has been proven to be hazardous, viewing the frames of the model has been proven to have no adverse effects. The white hand is depicted as a shriveled, slightly decayed hand, with surprising attention to detail. Flesh is peeling back from the bone, and several tendons dangle realistically out of the wrist. The first attack is the hand balling into a fist, and then swinging forward. However, the brutal animation is missing several frames. The hand seems to open up, then cuts out. After a few seconds, it reappears, closed again. No record has been found of these missing frames. Fiction. Game Boys couldn't hold .gif files, and this is simply a fan creation because of the girl that taunts you about a white hand on your shoulder at the edge of Lavender Town. Buried Alive, often referred to as its code, the Buryman script. The Buried Alive model was to be found on the final story of the Pokemon Tower, in what has now been replaced with the Marowak Ghost. According to the script assigned to it, the Buried Alive model was intended to be the boss of the tower. Once reaching the top floor, the following conversation would have taken place. This is all by Buried Alive and nobody else. You're here. I'm trapped, and I'm lonely. So very lonely. Won't you join me? After this, the battle would have been initiated. Once in battle view, the Buried Alive model appears to be a decaying human corpse attempting to crawl out of the ground. It has been programmed to have 2 white hands, a Gengar, and a Muck. Strangely enough, a protocol for the Buried Alive actions after it was defeated were not written. In the case of the player defeating him, the game would freeze. However, a specific ending was written by an unknown programmer upon losing the battle. In this ending, the Buried Alive model was to have started, "Finally, fresh meat," followed by several lines of gibberish. He was to have then dragged the player's character into the ground surrounding him. The scene would finish with a typical game over screen. However, in the background, an image of the Buried Alive character devouring the player was to have been shown. Especially strange are the protocols for after this scene. The cartridge was to download this image to the small internal memory contained in the Game Boy, overwriting the title screen that normally accompanied a Game Boy turning on. Instead, whenever it started, the player would view this image as the sound file staticmesh.wave was played. The intended purpose of this effect, unlike many of the other factors leading towards Lavender Town Syndrome, is unknown. Fiction. By Nintendo doing this would cause great outrage. The game is meant for children, and this game over screen is creepy as shit. and Nintendo would not let someone buy a game that would become unplayable after losing to one boss. You killed Gary's Raticate. When you go to Pokemon Tower, Gary is there and questions why you were there too, if all your Pokemon are still alive. By saying this means Gary is there to mourn the loss of one of his fallen Pokemon. This is also the first fight that Gary doesn't use his Raticate, which was last seen on him when you battled him on the SS Anne. Could it have been you who killed Gary's Raticate? Fact. I believe this is true, because if you think about it, why else would he be there if one of his Pokemon didn't die, and if this is really the first fight after his Raticate died? I mean, after you fought his whole team, and his Raticate's not there. So, it makes sense because this was the first time any of them were trainers. Like, they wasn't a past life or anything. He wasn't a trainer afterwards, so I believe that you, after you fought him, you couldn't get to a Pokemon healer fast enough. You couldn't find the door where the nurse was. I think it was an old guy, though, SSM, but I don't think he could find it, and I think you truly did kill Gary's Raticate. This is simply just a creepypasta. One thing that shows it's not true is that search history from Lavender Town Syndrome only started in 2010 and not in 1996. There is also no news articles made by real news websites with over 100 child suicides. That's not possible. And after the seizures that the first episode of Pokemon caused, the government really cracked down on the show. And if this had happened, no way would Pokemon still be around to this very day. I'm not saying Lavender Town isn't a creepy place. It always will be. But no one died after hearing the Lavender Town song. Well, not yet.
This is really how we live.